So I opened this up. This has to be a joke. Like, I'm being pranked right now, right? Hello, Canadian gardeners, cold climate gardeners, and gardeners of the extremes. How are you guys doing today? We are out in the yard, and today you are following me around. So if I look a little disheveled, it is because I am working, but I'm doing videos at the same time so I can share my knowledge with you. We are going to be potting up some succulents. So this was actually a request from one of our viewers, Michelle. Hi. And she asked exactly how we pot succulents. So I'm going to do you one better. In this video, we're going to be going over the actual plant prep and what needs to be done so that we can minimize the stress on the roots and the plant itself. Those tips I know you have not heard before because I watched a ton of videos on this and I didn't hear this once. And then we're going to be going over the containers you should be using, especially if you intend to bring these indoors and you're in a cold climate or a zone that has a short summer. And then we're going to be going over pre-bought cactus and succulent mix and how I am so thoroughly disappointed with it, especially if you are in a cold climate or you are a Canadian. This is not going to work for you. So I'm going to show you how we can modify potting soil mix to make it work for our succulents and cacti. So let's get started. So I'm going to be giving you guys a downward view and you're going to be watching me work. The reason being, I don't have a tripod and I don't have multiple cameras. I actually just film on my phone. This is just a hobby. It's not my job. So I'm going to apologize for that. I'd love to be able to for you to see my face, but also show you what I'm doing here, but not an option. So first of all, I've never heard of anyone doing this before. It's really important. We want to soak our succulents before we plant them. So I've actually had these guys in here for about half an hour now. This is warm water and I did a video on this that came out yesterday and going over the importance of warm water on plant roots. So this is warm water with half concentration of fertilizer. Now the reason we want to do this is we actually want to protect the roots. Roots, when they're dry, they snap very easily and they can get infection. So what we're doing here is we're trying to prevent root breakage. And I actually have an experiment that I set up and I want to show you that. So we can try this experiment with sticks, twigs, leaves, anything. So there is a difference between the two. This is a cattail reed that has been soaked in water versus one that has not been soaked in water. This water is just from my hands. So I'm going to show you the difference. When the cattail reed is wet and we play with it, it very easily snaps and kinks and falls apart. Just because it is dry, it has no moisture in the cattail leaf. Now, this one I've been soaking for 5 minutes, not even, and we're going to see the difference here. When I go to pull this, it wants to stay together a bit more. Now when I bend it, see how it's not cracking like the other one did? It's kind of just folding on itself. That is the power of water. So we want to make sure our roots are wet so we can prevent this from happening when we go to transplant them. And this goes for all plants. This isn't just for the succulents. We care about this when it comes to all of our plants. Tomatoes, everything. So, and this goes for when we're transplanting, moving, and they all apply. So these guys have been soaking and that's what we want to do with them. That is very important. Now for the containers, you can use different kinds of containers. Mine is a very shallow container, as you can see. Not very wide, not very deep, and this is what we want. It has a giant hole in the bottom. Now I use these every year for cactuses and succulents. This is my jam, but you can use something like a terracotta pot or something that has airflow from the sides. Now if you want a deeper pot that looks pretty, I suggest filling the bottom with rocks or something that allows for water to flow through. We want to try to reduce the amount of soil in the container. So now with that being said, we have this Miracle Grow cactus mix, succulent mix, And I will say for Canadian, this is not engineered for indoor succulents or for Canadian succulent growers. It is way too heavy. So I will put some in here and I will show you what I mean. So that is just too heavy. If I put it together, it's holding its shape, and we don't want this because when we bring these indoors, they're going to go into a dormancy when we are in a cold climate and we have winters. So when it goes dormant, it won't be taking up any moisture. So we don't want any moisture in the pot because we don't want to rot the roots when it goes into the dormancy in the wintertime. So what we're going to do, we're actually going to just simply mix some mulch in. Now this is just mulch from the garden. You can get prettier mulch if you want. Generally pet stores have mulch that looks a little bit nicer, but for this we're just going to be using garden mulch. This is what I use. It's just non-toxic mulch. It's black, so you don't really see it in there. And for this pot, I will put probably half a cup to 1 cup of mulch mix in. So these big pieces you can get rid of, but the tinier pieces you want to keep in. And what we're trying to do here is we're trying to prevent that sticking that we're seeing. So I'm just going to pull some more. And this should be enough. Now, this isn't going to add nutrients. This is solely for our soil structure. So what we're trying to do is we are trying to make it so that it falls apart and there is no structure, essentially. And that means we are going to have higher soil porosity and therefore airflow. When we have the higher airflow, we have more of a gas exchange. And when we have more of a gas exchange, that means that we have more air in our soil pores, which is what our succulent roots need. Now, I'm going to show you what happens when I squeeze this. So if I take a small piece and squeeze, it falls apart now. And that's what we want to see. We don't want to see this. We want to see this. Okay, so got it pretty full. Now succulents like really tight quarters because they don't have much of a root. So I'm just going to pat it down a little bit. Now let's take our succulents out. Now in this container I'm going to put 4 succulents. We want to keep them really close together. They thrive close together. They have like a community root system. So you can see how saturated that is. It is literally dripping with water. And now I'm not going to fuddle with these roots at all. I'm simply just going to set them on top of the soil. So again, lots of moisture. Oh, that guy, see, he's not totally soaked through yet. So we'll just put him back in there. And again, dripping wet. Okay, so now before we plant, we can kind of organize these guys. Okay, so now we are just going to plant them in there. I'm going to put mine on an angle. This guy's going to get relatively tall, so I'm going to put him in the middle. And you really want to push them in. Put him over a little bit. Put this guy in here. Just leave that guy out. And put this guy in. So this little piece that fell off here, we will just leave him out on top of the soil and he will make a new baby soon. So lots of dirt on top, that is totally fine. So I have this fertilizer here, and this is just to let you guys know I do not put any of the granular fertilizer into my succulent bowls. I just water them with fertilizer. The reason being is this has a really low nitrogen content. Miracle Grow Crystal Mix actually has a very high nitrogen content, which is what we want for succulents. So that has a 24, so the 24 is what we're looking for. That is nice and high, and that is exactly right in the wheelhouse what we want, because we want vegetative growth. We don't necessarily have blooms here in Canada because we don't have the sun to get the blooms on these guys. So that is where we want to go with that, is the Miracle Grow Crystal Mix, which has the high nitrogen content, which fosters vegetative growth. That is number one. So now to top these guys off, we are going to add some rocks on top, and these are just decorative, but they also serve the purpose of making sure that our soil doesn't get washed away when we water these guys. So this is just from the Dollarama. You can get these anywhere. So I'm gonna pack these in wherever I find space. And there you guys go. That is our succulent bowl, and he's gonna be very happy and he's gonna do awesome in here. So there you guys go. If you enjoyed that video and you learned something from it, be sure to give it a like, subscribe down below, and comment. Let me know if you've tried any of those tricks, or if you knew about the pre-watering and kind of the effects on roots. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye. Oh, hey there. Are you still watching? Make sure to hit that subscribe button for some more awesome plant videos.